but the divine within you is wishing to be recognized. Because if you recognize that divine energy that is within you, you become one with all that is. And as you become one with all that is, you begin to understand your personal purpose. And within that dynamic of that personal purpose, it puts you on your soul's path. When you realize it and you begin to make those choices to follow that soul's path, when you realize that your life is an opening to the next phase of reality that you chose to experience. This is your journey. We would suggest you enjoy it. You know, what's that ancient Chinese curse? May you live in interesting times. Yeah, well, there you are. You've got the interesting times. You certainly do. You know, back a couple of decades ago, we used to say, you know, you've all incarnated at this very crucial time in human evolution because you wish to help. You wish to be there at least to witness the dynamic, and that's exactly what you're doing. You're not only witnessing, but look at the opportunities that you are being given, each of you, to affect your reality. And we mean even the most microcosmic of the dynamics of energy each time you are being faced with choices. Are you going to respond? Are you going to react to the dynamics in an old way? Or are you going to understand things as they really are and deal with the realities of the situation, the pragmatism? Or are you going to get locked down in the dynamics of old feelings, old emotions, old dynamics of less than, old dynamics of anger, old dynamics of rage? Because these are all just distractions that are intended to keep you from being happy. Because when you're happy, you are effective in your reality. And you don't seem to realize that happiness builds upon itself. Very few of you practice happiness. If we asked you to define being happy, each of you would have a different definition. And we don't want to hear half of them. But that's a whole other story. Right. So understand that's so much of what's being asked of you all right now in the dynamics of the reflections of your reality. As we're eavesdropping on the dynamic, you know, we're listening to the situation with Jennifer, and being in New Orleans and being on Basin Street and realizing that there was a memorial for all of those people that were killed during that terrorist attack, which was just a couple of weeks ago. And yet, that whole dynamic of that memory, unless you are involved in that dynamic, dissipates to the point that unless you are reminded of it through a memorial or something like that, it would be another dynamic of just another movement of reality. That the lesson of it, the dynamics of the definitions and the things of the reflections that were supposed to be learned, drift off into the ethers. It's an interesting dynamic, is it not? Like, for example, you know, in some of these nightclub shootings or things like that. By remembering those dynamics, do you keep that negative energy that caused the situation alive?
Well, it's like it melted away, like the snow melted away.
Yeah, but it's a dynamic of a testament of how little mm, mastery you have over the consensus reality. that the consensus reality presents scenarios that are intended to be understood as metaphors for bigger picture dynamics.
So the fact that it sort of went away, evaporated, means the lesson wasn't picked up, wasn't learned, or that it did its job
Well,
and it
it
wasn't
was and it
needed?
wasn't, because if you look at it, it was the last vestiges of the Biden administration,
Hmm.
where the dynamic had been open borders and all of that stuff. And this person, but it didn't fit in with exactly within the open borders thing. But he was an immigrant. He was here legally, but he was an immigrant, and had been radicalized, and all of his writings and everything like that basically led one to believe that he was going to pull off a suicide
Hmm.
terrorist attack. And so, there is that dynamic of that energy. Imagine the amount of rage you must have to be able to pull something like that off, to be able to look at the dynamic of life so cheaply. And we realize, it is a almost a false paradigm. So many of you, you're safe, you know, in the dynamics of your reality, and you are also safe because, in so many ways, you are forming a loose knit community that shares a certain dynamic of belief. Correct.